Ezat Hashem, it's good to see everyone back. Today, Yosef, for the lunch and learn today for making the pasta. It's very exciting. Ezat Hashem, we'll have it in a few minutes. Yeah. And Ezat Hashem, our learning today should be as a zchut for Wafah Shleima for Yaakov ben Dinah, for all Cholei Amo Yisrael, for all of the sick people amongst the Jews, as well as for protection. Hashem should protect all the Jews throughout the world, particularly in Eretz Yisrael right now. Those Jews that are going into Rafah, they should be protected, and we should only hear B'sorot Tovot. However, we're going to learn today a fascinating story about Hillel. We learned it in Masechet Shabbat, and it's a very famous story about Hillel, the extreme anivut, humility, and easygoing nature of Hillel Hazaken. Extreme to a degree that he wouldn't get angry about anything. Oh, we know. You know, you heard the story before, but let's go through it. Inside is different, you'll see. And it's such a beautiful story, and we'll learn tremendous lessons from this as well. Just to appreciate this, the previous Gemara had said that there's a contradiction in Psukim. Because on one hand, in Sefer Mishleh, Shlomo HaMelech seems to say, you shouldn't answer a Aksil, Toda. That's what we're talking about here. Oh. This is Masechet Shabbat, Lamed Amud Bet. We're just learning. Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. On one hand, it says, don't answer a fool. Al ta'aksil. Don't get involved with him. On the other hand, it says, you should. So the Gemara says, what's the pshat? Is to a degree, it was such a stira, it was such a contradiction, the Chachamim were thinking, maybe we should even put Sefer Mishlei in Genizah. They were thinking, it doesn't make sense. Put it in bury it. So the answer we said was, it depends what he's asking. If he's asking in Divrei Torah, you have to answer. If he's asking in Mili Da'alma, Shtuyot, unimportant things, don't have to answer. So on that, the Gemara tells us a story with Hillel and Shammai. Actually, Shammai is going to be the next stories. We're not going to get to that today. The Gemara here tells us stories where someone came to Hillel and was asking him things which really they were not Divrei Torah, and really he could have pushed the guy away if he wanted to. But instead, he gave the guy such respect, we're going to see, and patience, superhuman patience we're going to learn about, and the lesson we're going to see ultimately is how patient we have to be and not allow ourselves to get angry, which is a very difficult thing. So let's see. Tanu Abanan, it's the last line, Lamed Amud Bet, in Masechet Shabbat. La'olam yehei adam anvetan ki Hillel, va'al yehei kapdan ki Shammai. A person should always be humble, easygoing, like Hillel, and not kapdan, like Shammai. Kapdan means exact or stern. Strict. According to easygoing. SY is strict. No, we're not talking about the Gerim here. That's the next thing. The point is, a person should always be humble and easygoing. Humble and easygoing, and not kaptan, not strict. That's what he says. The Sfarim teach us, we're going to see, it's difficult to be on the level like Hillel, but at least don't be such a kaptan like Shammai. That's really what we're going to learn. Ma'aseh, there was a story that goes as follows. B'shnei b'nei Adam. Okay, you had these two guys. Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. She'emru zeh et zeh. They made a bet with each other. Okay, what was the bet that they made with each other? They said as follows. They knew that there was a tzaddik in the city called Hillel HaZaken. He was big tzaddik. He was known. He was the Nasi Yisrael, the leader of the Jewish people. And everyone knew that he had superhuman patience. Everyone knew he never, ever got angry. So these two guys made a deal with each other. Amru, they said, one to the other, Kol mi she'elech v'yaknit et Hillel. Anybody that's able, either one of us, that's able to go and make Hillel angry, Itol dalid meot zuz. He will receive 400 zuz. It's a sum of money, a large sum of money. So one guy made a deal, Reuven and Shimon made a deal with each other. If I could make Hillel lose his cool, get angry, you owe me 400 zuz. And if I can't, I'd pay you 400 zuz. Okay. So how are you going to make him lose his temper? How are you going to do it? So he said, I have a great idea. I'm going to make Hillel get upset. So he said like this. Today is Erev Shabbat. Erev Shabbat, people are a little bit stressed out. They're a little busy. And it's, by the way, unfortunately, something we could learn already is Erev Shabbat, we have to try to be extra patient because very often Erev Shabbat, Everyone's rushing and doing what they need to do. Get out of my way. You're honking, you're screaming. It's a challenging time.
That's very hard.
Yitzhak is very strong at that time. We have to be careful. That's already step number one.
You put him to sleep.
So this guy, well, if maybe have a l'chaim Erev Shabbat. Keep yourself calm. But anyways, the point is, sometimes Erev Shabbat is the time people actually get angry. Look, I'm running to do a mitzvah even. I'm preparing for Shabbat. Get out of my way. Oh, that's it. Oto hayom, that day, Erev Shabbat haya. It was Friday. It was Erev Shabbat. And what was Hillel HaZaken doing on that day? Hillel chafaf et rasho. Hillel was washing his hair. Gemara tells us there's certain things we're supposed to do in preparation for Shabbat that's actually mitzvot. One of them is you clean yourself for Shabbat. Likvod Shabbat, it's a mitzvah. Wash your hair, take a shower. Beautiful, wonderful. Halach ve'avar al petach beito. So this guy went to the door of the house of Hillel. Okay, now you have to remember, everyone knew who Hillel was. Everyone knew that he was the leader of the generation, Nasi Israel, he was a tzaddik, Talmid Chacham, everything. So what does this guy do? He goes to the door of the house of Hillel, and he says like this, Amar, he says, Mi kan Hillel, Mi kan Hillel. Who is this Hillel? Who is this Hillel? Is Hillel here? The Mefarshim speak out over here. Rashi says over here, this is a lashon genai. This is disrespectful. Mizalzel.
Like you don't know who is
as if he doesn't know who he is. Everyone knew who he was. He was the leader of the generation, the greatest Jew. Who's the Hillel that's over here? Not only that, but he called him by his first name.
It was such a
understand what a chutzpah is? Maybe where's the rabbi? No, who's the Hillel? There's a chutzpah.
You want to bother him.
So he was trying to get under Hillel's skin. Now Hillel, by the way, think about this for a second. You're busy in a mitzvah, you're taking a shower, getting ready for Shabbat. He didn't just take a shower to feel good, he wanted to get ready for Shabbat. So he could have stormed out and said, who are you? Get out of here. So what happens? What do you say? You're trying to get under Hillel's skin. Hillel wrapped himself, he put on a towel around his hair, and he went out to greet this guy. Amarlo, and he says to the guy, Bini, ma'ata mevakesh. He says, my son, what do you want? What can I do for you? I have a question that I need to ask you. Okay, so now he's coming Erev Shabbat when Hillel's taking a shower. It must be a good question, right? Maybe his wife is cleaning the chicken and it looks like it might not be kosher and they're not going to have food for Shabbat, or some milk spilled into the cholent and now they have to know. It must be a very important question that could only be asked right now, obviously, is that right? Yeah. Amar lei, so Hillel turns to him, he says, Sha'al b'ni sha'al, ask, please, in a very respectful way. Sha'al b'ni sha'al, Hillel says to this guy, ask my son, ask, which is a very gentle, respectful way to say. So this guy turns to Hillel and he says, Mipnei ma roshehen shel bavli'im segal galot. Rashi learns two pshatim, but he says, what's the reason, actually, he says here like this, what's the reason that the heads of the Babylonians are round? Right? He asked him a National Geographic. Yeah. What's the reason that the Babylonian people, their heads are round?
Very important question.
It's very important question to ask. Came out of the shower, Erev Shabbat, to ask such a question. Can you imagine? So what's Hillel going to say back? A lot of people would probably say back, why don't you come back to me on Sunday? Was that Monday even? Stay away an extra day.
To be continued.
Amar lei, so Hillel turns to this guy and he says, Bini, sheila gdola sha'alta. Wow, you asked a big question. Very good question. So he said, so what's the pshat? So he said, pshat, mipnei she'en lahem chayot pichot. Very interesting. The Babylonian midwives, the ones who assist in giving the women's giving birth, they're not so professional. So when the children come out, the head gets a little bit pressed and they end up being round. You know, the baby's head is very soft, very soft. So they're not so professional and that causes the children's heads to be a little bit misshapen. Yeah. Can you imagine this conversation? Hillel's in his bathrobe over there. And he's talking to the guy and the guy, he says, it's a good question because he gives him the answer. Okay, beautiful. He gives him that answer. I saw, before we continue even, why did Hillel even entertain this? Like, why? Hillel could have said, like, look, my friend, I'm taking a shower for Shabbat. Maybe you could come back next week and we'll talk about it. And why would he even entertain this question?
It's story like Rabbi Elazar when he disrespected.
I think he knew
when he was under Nisayon from Eliyahu Navi, that Eliyahu Navi was sent from Hashem to put him down a little bit because he had such a ga'ava.
He looked ugly.
And he fell into it. He fell into this trap.
Right.
So you never know who is asking you a question, what is going to be the question.
Right.
And what is going to cause to the person in the future, the way that you respond.
I hear. Okay, I hear what you're saying. What do you want to say, Yosef?
Well, for one, if the gentleman was coming Erev Shabbat, obviously to that person, it must have been such a big
very
deal.
nice, very nice.
So he had to take that question.
Very nice, very nice. You're saying no one would have the chutzpah to do this other than if it really was bothering him. That's very nice, very nice. Very nice pshat.
But also, he lived by, this is Hillel Hazaken, we lived by very important concepts because he lived by Ohev Shalom, Radev Shalom.
Ahovet habriot u'mekarvan Torah. Beautiful.
Mekarvan Torah. So no matter what, if you live by this theme, this is how you must act at all times. Otherwise, you would show that you're not really like this. So
very nice. He has to, even in the pressured time now, he has to be very patient. Wow. Beautiful. Yafeh. So there's 2 points here, just to point out before we continue. One, this guy, the shtick that he was trying to do, as we'll continue in the story, was he didn't ask even a dvar halacha. He didn't ask a halachic question or something that was pressing. It was more like, I got it, just like an interesting thing. This isn't necessarily Torah. This is like, and the answer that Hillel said, it was like, open up National Geographic. Why do they look that way? Why does he look that way? We're going to get to it. He was trying to get under Hillel's skin because he figured if I ask him a question that's so unimportant, seemingly, he'll probably get annoyed at me and then snap back at me. But Hillel didn't respond that way. Now, why didn't Hillel respond that way? So Yosef's saying that was his whole nature, that was his whole thing about being patient. It's true. But it's more than that. Meaning if a student or someone asks a question, even if it doesn't look to be Torah related or it's unimportant, the problem is like this. If you shut him down, you say, get out of here, what kind of question? So then when he has an important question, what's going to happen? He'll be embarrassed to ask.
He's not going to ask.
So when he has a halachic question, what's he going to do? He won't ask the question. Hillel understood that and he said, okay, even if this question doesn't seem too important, it is ultimately, because in the future he's going to ask halachic questions or Torah questions, and I need it to be that he's comfortable to ask. Otherwise, there's going to be a genuine issue.
So they don't want to burn him out because it's going to reply to him in a harsh way, like what is this stupid question?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but maybe that's a stupid question to him, but not a stupid question to the person.
No, I'm saying.
Sure,
in this case, he would reply.
Because you don't know who you are dealing with and what is the, how high is the
that's true.
knowledge of that.
True. I mean, for
so
that
maybe
person.
That's a really important question to that
exactly.
person.
That's what Yosef was saying similar, which is if he's coming Erev Shabbat to ask such a question, obviously for
or
him.
you don't know what he was dealing with.
Right.
Maybe there is something really important that is
Exactly. All right, let's continue the story here. Alach v'imtin. Okay, Yosef, I'm going to continue. You'll pass it out, yeah? Alach v'imtin sha'achat. So the Gemara continues and says, the guy who was asking, the nudnik over here, he went away for an hour, he waited an hour, let's say it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. Hillel went back to take a shower. Chazar v'amar, and then he came back to Hillel's house, and he said again, Mi kan Hillel, where's the Hillel, where's Hillel? Again, at this point already, obviously he knows who is Hillel. Give everyone else, I'll take you after. Bakashat, give everyone else. He knows who Hillel is, okay? He knows who he is, and again, he says the same disrespectful thing. That's what he says again. Yosef Chazak Baruch. Beautiful. So again, Hillel comes out of the shower. Hillel wraps himself in the towel, puts on his clothing, and he goes out to greet this guy. Amarlos, he says to this guy, Beni ma'ata mevakesh. What do you need? What could I do for you?
He went to the shower again?
Again, he went back. Now he was cutting his nails. I don't know. He was taking care of himself. Amarle. So again, this guy says to Hillel, She'ela yesh li lish'ol. I have a question to ask. Oh, so maybe now he has a Hilchot Shabbat. Please, everybody, make a bracha. Make a bracha and eat while we're learning. I just want to continue because we're in the middle of the story. No, mizonot, please.
It's okay.
Tochal, please, Chevra. Amen. She'ela yesh li lishol. I have a very important question. Amar le Hillel says to him again, She'al b'ni she'al. Ask away. Any question. Mipnei ma einehen shel tarmudiyin trutot. So this guy says to Hillel, what's the reason that the eyes of these people that are called tarmudiyin are trutot? Trutot, Rashi learns, is like small or closed. Chinese, maybe. Why do the tarmudiyin have small eyes? Okay, so again, on the note of National Geographic, Amar lo. So this guy says, Hillel says back to this guy, B'ni she'ela gdola sha'alta. You asked a very good question. Again, validates the question. You asked a very good question, and he said back, why? Mipnei shedarin bein hacholot. They live amongst the sand. Very interesting. They live amongst the sand. You know, if sand, it's a stormy place with sand, get in your eyes. So the eyes, exactly. So the eyes are closed, the dust doesn't get into their eyes. That's what Hillel told this guy. So the Tormidian people, their eyes are Chinese. I don't know, maybe that's why Chinese. That was his answer. Beautiful. I did see that the basis of this question does have a Torah basis, actually, very interesting, which is really, this guy was asking from the perspective of this. He was saying, Hashem created one person, which was Adam Harishon. And yet you look around the world and different nationalities look different countries. So really he was saying something that you could say has a chelek in Torah. It's to understand Maaseh Bereshit. Why is it that country looks like that? Okay. Still, it's probably it's not the appropriate time to ask, but Allah, exactly, skin tone, right? Allah v'imtin sha'achat, he waited another hour, chazar v'amar, and he comes back a third time. And he says, Mikan Hillel, Mikan Hillel. Now, who's the Hillel? Where's Hillel? So Hillel comes out to greet him. Amar and he says, Beni mata mevakesh, what do you need? Now again, let's say now it's Erev Shabbat, we're talking about 5 in the afternoon. Hillel's getting dressed, he's going to shul, and this guy comes again a third time. Can you imagine? Amar again, She'ela yesh li lish'ol. I have a question I need to ask you, Hillel. She'al b'ni she'al, please ask your question. So final question, what was it? Mipnei ma raglehem shel Afrikiyim rechavot. Why do the Africans have wide feet? Why do the Africans have wide feet? Okay. So Hillel says to this guy, B'ni she'ela gdola sha'alta. You asked a very good question. Why do the Africans have wide feet? Can you imagine going over to the rabbi, even in shul, and asking like funny questions? And this is Erev Shabbat, and Hillel's getting ready for Shabbat. Why do the Africans have wide feet? So Hillel says back, Mipnei. So Amar le b'ni she'ela gdola sha'alta. Very good question. Mipnei shedarin ben betzei hamayim. Rashi says 2 pshatim, but he says because they live amongst swampland. They live in wet areas. So Rashi says is that in order that they don't sink, they have like wide feet, spread out feet. Another pshat he says is that they don't walk with shoes. They walk barefoot, and this causes their feet to spread out. Okay. So 3 times this guy tried to get under Hillel's skin, and he wasn't successful. So this guy took this as a lesson. We know 3 times is already chazakah. What is chazakah? It creates a standard, expectation. Right? We know if something happens 3 times, you could assume that's what's going to continue to happen. So this guy, he realized that he had failed in his attempt to anger Hillel. So he turns to Hillel and he says to him, Amar lo, she'elot harbe yesh li lish'ol. I have a lot of questions to ask you. This was his last-ditch effort. Umityarei ani shema tichos. But I'm nervous to ask because I might make you angry. Now I saw the Mefarshim speak out. This was a final attempt to anger Hillel. Can you imagine? I'm nervous to ask because I might make you angry. What happened the last 3 times? While I was in the shower, right? You're nervous I might get angry. I mean, clearly I didn't get angry. So it's a chutzpah and a chutzpah. So what happened? Nitatef yashav lefanav. Hillel wrapped himself. And he sat in front of this fellow. Amar le kol she'elot sheyesh lecha lish'ol she'al. All the questions that you want to ask, feel free. I'm all ears.
I wish I would spend Shabbat with him.
Can you imagine that? All the questions you want to ask. The Nasi Israel has all the time in the world for this guy who's asking him these seemingly unimportant questions. Amar le, so this guy turns back to Hillel and he says, Atahu Hillel shekorino otcha Nasi Israel. You're Hillel that they call the Nasi Israel, the leader of the Jewish people. Amar le hen. You're the Hillel? And he says back, yeah, that's me. That's I. That is I. That's me. Amar le, so Hillel this guy turns to Hillel and he says, Imatahu, if you're the Hillel that they talk about, lo yirbu kimotcha beYisrael. There should not be many people like you amongst the Jews. Eze chutzpah. Can you imagine? Imagine going to the Gadol, going to Rabbi Yosef, and this whole story happening. There shouldn't be people like you. So Hillel, what should be Hillel's response? Slap the guy in the face, right? No. Amar le. So he says, Mipnei ma bni, bini mipnei ma. He said, my son, why? Why shouldn't there be people like me? It's like it's such a extreme humility we're talking about. So this guy turns to Hillel, Amar le, he says to him, Mipnei she'avadeti al yadcha arba meot zuz. I lost 400 zuz because of you. There shouldn't be many people like you because I lost the bet. And he told him there was a bet and I lost 400 zuz. You understood? Now, you can imagine now Hillel getting very annoyed. You were doing a bet and you bothered me Erev Shabbat. A pretty annoying thing to do. Amar le, so Hillel turned back to this guy and he said, oh, this is the lesson. You should be careful with your temper. You should control your anger. It's worthwhile for Hillel that you should lose 400 zuz and 400 zuz. He actually lost 800 because if he would have won, he would have gotten 400 from the other guy. Now he has to pay 400 to the other guy, so he's losing, you could say, as a sum total 800. Yeah. It's kedai that you lose 800 zuz, v'Hillel lo yakpid, and Hillel doesn't get angry. He said, it's so terrible to get angry, and it's so important to be calm and patient and not angry. It's worthwhile that you should lose that money, and I did not become angry. That's what Hillel finished off the story. Now this is an extreme example, obviously. So I saw the Mefarshim speak out. In a minute, soon. 2 more minutes, we'll finish up here. But I saw that the Mefarshim speak out. The Gemara here is, to be like Hillel is like, superhuman. But it's saying, at least don't be such a kapdan like Shammai. Why? Shammai was a tzaddik bidoro. He was the most righteous of his generation. That's without question. But he knew the kapdanut that was appropriate. But for us, even if we're not on the level of Hillel, to be like so extremely patient and humble and gentle and easygoing, we should try not to be a kapdan either. So we should strive to be more like Hillel than, as a few more stories go with Shammai. We're not going to get into that today.
I don't think we could be like Hillel.
It's a very high level.
To be close to it.
Close. Try to be close to it. But just to finish off, where does this come from? What's the idea really over here? So we learned the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit. Really, we've spoken about this a few times. We know people who learn Torah, it naturally makes them very intense, harsh almost. The Torah, it makes a person ke'esh, kebarzel, like fire, like iron, very intense, because they really value what it is that they're doing. And if they see somebody not doing that or making light of it, making fun, there's a natural reaction. But the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit also tells us, Ravina says, Afilu hachi mibayile le'inish le'melef nafshei b'nei chuta. We have to train ourselves to be gentle, which means even though the natural propensity is, if you're really a Ben Torah, you really understand Torah, when you hear something that's off, you hear something wrong, you want to jump and snap at those people, we need to train ourselves to be gentle. So Hillel was the extreme example of that in this story, obviously. And he had every right and every reason to get upset and annoyed at this guy. Despite that, he didn't, which is why he was Hillel HaZaken. Like you said, Ahovet HaBriot u'Mekarvan LaTorah. For us, you're right, Yosef, this is an extremely high level.
I don't think anybody could do it.
But at least we could try to strive to be like him. To be more easygoing than to be more difficult. More easygoing than harsh. It's a very high level.
What Hillel said in Pirkei Avos, Lo HaKapadan Melamed.
Exactly.
The person who is a kapadan can't really teach.
Exactly.
Because you're so like...
Beautiful.
So that's him saying that.
Beautiful.
So he realized that if I would get angry, there's no way I could teach us anything.
Ve'ena Baishan Lomed also. Right? Beautiful. Perfect. Because if the Rebbe is a kapdan, the students won't ask. That's the idea. Exactly.
To make this is better than 41.
Better than the 41.
Better than 41. And the shiur is better than the pasta. Cheva, chazak u'baruch. We'll stop here. But Yosef, toda, thank you for making the pasta. V'ezat Hashem.
Not because I did it. I think it tastes better than 40.
Yeah, so good.
Hillel should have answered.
This whole thing cost.
There shouldn't be people like you.
Shouldn't be people like you. I hear.
Making bets.
About the Chachamim. I hear. That would have been a fair answer also. But he didn't.
That's the reason why everyone comes to hear you, because you teach with such, in a friendly manner, in a beautiful way.
Thank you.
Everyone
I
wants to
appreciate
hear,
it.
Learn from you. It's so easy to learn from you.
Thank you to that.
I made too much.
How to tell somebody in shul to be quiet.
It's not
I
simple.
put like 5 or 6, you know.
First, you don't say it.
4 boxes should be more than that.
Second, if you go up to him, maybe he's telling somebody his issue. If you tell him to be quiet, of course he won't come back.
Right.
And third, maybe he's telling the other guy he didn't pay his light bill. If he's doing that and you're asking, you have to pay the light bill.
Ah, very nice.
I mean, it didn't say
Very
light
nice.
bill, but
Example.
something about the other person. So if you want to tell, if you're so concerned about the other person, you gotta jump in. You gotta be very careful to tell
And also, it's
somebody.
probably more likely he'll listen to you if he sees that you're genuinely concerned about him.
First of all, the rabbi has.
Yeah, you know, I hear.
But if you're gonna say you say,
Yeah, it's bad. And it's twice as much.
maybe he's venting.
You
Initially,
put 6
yes.
boxes. If you put 4 boxes
You
in
don't know.
Exactly. Beautiful.
pasta, then it's enough.